Hey, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Well, good evening, good afternoon, depending where you are. I set up this live stream for people like in the GMT plus 10 time zone, like Australia, Indonesia, everything up and down from there. And hence the little map on the thumbnail on the stream. But I appreciate everyone that comes in and kind of wants to hang out, or if I can answer any questions about Olympus cameras or photography or, photo editing, like in Workspace, a little bit in Lightroom too. I'll do my best to help you because I remember what it was like as a beginner, just not really understanding things that should be very simple, right? Like I'll never forget, when I was starting that I didn't know what aperture was. And this was in 2012. Gosh, the years are passing by. It seems like yesterday. I was like, what is aperture? So I had to ask my friend, Walter, who's a friend of mine here locally, professional photographer here local to me. But I've known him since like college. So 30 some years. And he helped me out a lot in the beginning, and I always felt like, maybe that's what I can do for others, right? Is help you get started in photography and explain some of the most basic terms. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I forgot to check the audio before I turn on, but it looks like the level meters are going. So good morning, Plato, Peter, Andy, Deb O'Connor, good to see you. Hi Liz, how are you? John follows from the UK just after midday. Wow, okay, good. So this time frame kind of works actually for UK too. I would imagine some of you are at work, some not, or working from home at this point. But the other two streams that I have are just not in line with this particular time zone for a lot of viewers. So I said, maybe every other week or so I can come in at this time frame, because this is really early for me. I know you can't tell because my eyes are always red and watery from allergies. It's so embarrassing when I make my videos, I just can't find a window where my eyes are clear and I look, like I'm not high or something, right? But hey, Arthur, how are you? I'm curious, what time is it there for you? Big news on the, oh yeah, I got up a little earlier today, like at 6 a.m., like an hour ago, which is really early for me. I saw a thumbnail or a video from Joe Edelman about the EM10 Mark IV. And I think they made a couple of really nice improvements. The 20 megapixel sensor, of course, which is probably the same as in all their higher end cameras, their EM1X and EM1 Mark III. But also they kept with the tilt screen, right? It tilts all the way down now, which is really an improvement for people that want to vlog at the same time, because that's always been an issue with that camera, at least for me, is I could never vlog with it. And I mean, you can, you just look front and center at the lens and you're fine, right? But it's not the same. And the being able to flip all the way down, not only for vlogging, but for high up angles, you can tilt the screen down 90 degrees and get a better view. If you like to put your camera all the way up over your head, it's certainly easier for that too. It has some tripod issues, of course, right? You can't really flip all the way down on a tripod, but you still got some tilting ability. So I'm really glad they put that mechanism in, because all their Pen PL8s, PL9s, they all have that. And I'm really glad they put that into the EM10. And then of course all the other features. I didn't see any particularly big improvements in terms of features, right? It looks like it's still the EM10 Mark III feature-wise. which is not a bad thing because there's already so many features in these cameras that the upgrade path, or to be able to grow as a photographer and take advantage of these features, are there. You know, it doesn't look like they really held much back other than the custom settings, which, you know, I assume has been taken out. I haven't seen all the specs yet, but it was taken out of the EM10 Mark III. I don't know why they would put it back in the EM10 Mark IV if they decided not to do it. So 2 p.m. over there for you. That's good. So I guess this is not a really terrible time slot for a lot of people, which is good. Oh, it's raining. Yeah, it's raining here too, Jeff. We have a tropical storm coming up the coast on, you know, in the States here. And so it rained a lot yesterday, and it's raining probably all day today, but tomorrow's supposed to be sunny. So that's good. And Darren's asking, what f-stop would you use for higher shutter speeds? It seems when I want to go faster, lower the f-stop, f2.8. Yeah, definitely the lower the f-stop number, the more light that can come in, so the faster the shutter speed you can use. So I generally recommend always shoot an aperture priority with the lens wide open, particularly kit lenses, meaning wide open, meaning the lowest f-stop number possible. So on a kit lens, it might be 3.5. On some of the pro lenses, it'll be 2.8 or 1.8 or 1.2. So the lower the number, the faster the shutter speed. Now, when you get below 2.8, you have to be a little conscious of the depth of field, meaning, you know, it gets a little shallower, gets more shallow, the more open that aperture is, the lower the number. So you may want that, you may not, right? Particularly with the longer focal length, say, you know, 40, 45 millimeters, if you're shooting at f2.8 or f2, just keep that in mind, which, you know, it can be troublesome for like close-up photography of flowers and things where, you know, maybe the whole flower won't be in focus, but then it might be desirable for portraits and things where you can get a little more separation of the subject, right, from the background. But as far as shutter speeds go, the more light you can let into the camera, the faster the shutter speed. So faster meaning 1/100th of a second. Let's say is one speed, and then 1/500th of a second is faster, right? So I just wanted to bear that out a little because the math on cameras can be very confusing, right? When you say you want a faster aperture, you lower the number. When you want a faster shutter speed, you lower the number, but the numbers aren't represented as fractions like they truly are. You know, aperture is a fraction, right? It's focal length over I can't remember the math. See, that's how crazy it is. So I'm not really a super math person, but if you think of the numbers, and the numbers on the back of the camera aren't always represented as fractions like they truly are. You might just see 100 in the camera, but that's 1/100 in shutter speed. So Darren asks, so the faster the lens, f1.2, then the faster the shutter speed. Yes, the faster you can potentially go with this, all things being equal, light, ISO, everything being equal, yeah, the faster you can go. 8 p.m. in Japan. Oh, wow. I'm so happy to have somebody here from Japan, because a lot of times, you know, obviously a lot of my viewers are just from the English-speaking type countries or can speak English. And it's always nice to see people from countries where English is not necessarily the native language. And Andy says, I've seen photographers on forums post about issues with the tripod mount on the EM5 Mark III, especially if used with a capture clip. No, I haven't had any problems, but like I said, I always put, my EM5 is outside, but I always put Arca Swiss plates on the bottom. So like, here's my EM10, right? I get a full plate for all of my cameras because these are small cameras, and you know, and they put the mount usually very close up to the front of the camera. So that just gives the potential for more torque. So it doesn't matter if it's the EM5 or EM10, EM1, or, you know, a Nikon Z6. You know, if you put too much torque on that joint, then it's going to break. I mean, there's plenty of people with higher end cameras that have broken their tripod mounts. But clearly it was their fault, right? Now, if there's a inherent weakness in the EM5 Mark III, all the more reason to get a full plate like this. So with a plastic camera, you know, it's plastic, always do, you know, take care with mounting anything to it, you know, and, you know, either on the flash, the hot shoe, on the tripod mount, even the lens, right? Because I've heard stories where people pack their camera in their bag with the lens on, and then they get to their destination and somehow it dropped, you know, the bag dropped onto the floor of their car or whatever, but the lens mount is broken off the camera. So, and that's just all pure physics, right? The torques that's applied to any of the points on the camera. So yeah, so with a plastic camera, you know, with any camera really, you have to be very conscious of those points, those weak spots, right? But personally, I haven't had any issue, but that's because I always take care in that sense. I drop my cameras a lot, but I always take care about the mounting points, the hot shoe, and even the little jacks on the side, you know, where you push and put things in and out here, your cables or wires. I'm always very, very careful with those things in particular because those are very fragile as well, regardless of camera brand. I mean, you hear Jordan, I think it's Jordan on DP Review now, talk about he hates those mini HDMIs like our Olympus have because he's always breaking them. You know, that's because he's not careful. But anyhow, oh, hi from Australia. Awesome, awesome. I appreciate it, Don. And Queensland, okay. And you're in Southwest here, Denmark. Awesome. Rod, good to see you. You've been watching my videos lately. I remember you've been commenting on them. So yeah, I've been doing testing with the EOS R3, our EOS RP camera. This beast. I have a couple of videos on the ISO tests, and it was kind of interesting to see the low light ISO versus like semi-normal light. I thought my first test was relatively low light, but some people didn't agree, so I just went even darker. And I did see a difference, you know, in the performance of particularly the RP. You know, it's so hard to test a camera in a bubble, right? Because a lot of reviews, they test the cameras, but only that camera, not against anything else. So I'm fortunate I have the luxury of all these different kinds of cameras. I can put them side by side and see how they perform relative to each other, right? Because, you know, a lot of people are thinking about, you know, other cameras, right? Other than Olympus, which is, you know, my go-to camera. But some people, you know, they think about other cameras and it's hard to know, you know, you may not know what you're getting into. Well, let me rephrase. I'm not phrasing that correctly. But it's good to know what you're getting when you buy it, right? Relative to what you already have. That's why a lot of my lens reviews are always kit lens versus pro lens. I'm not trying to be dramatic, right? I'm trying to show you what you're getting over what you already have, if anything, right? If it's worth spending, you know, $700 or $1,000 on a pro lens when you have a kit lens that covers that same focal length. And it goes the same for cameras. You know, maybe you have an EM10, right? Whatever version, and you're thinking about upgrading maybe to an EM1 or maybe to a Canon RP, right? You want to skip, you know, APS-C and go all the way to full frame. it's important to know what you're getting. What's the difference in performance, at least in terms of image quality? And then the ergonomics, I'm going to do a video on the ergonomics and the features and my sort of general feeling of the camera in use later this week. I need to handle it more and actually take it out on a full day photo walk, maybe a couple of days to get a feel. Before I pass any judgment, but so far it's fine. You know, it has a few quirks and a few limitations, but it also has some features that are a little, you know, in some ways a little more flexible than on the Olympus cameras. So I'll try and bear out just those things when I do my comparisons. With the spirit of that you already have a camera and maybe you're thinking about the Canon RP. Nice to meet you too, Don. Andy's question 1: Olympus camera plus lens combo would you recommend for non-Olympus shooters, and why? Really depends on what they want to shoot. I would say, you know, without knowing anything about the photographer, I'd say EM1 Mark II with a 12-40 Pro. If they already have a camera and they're pretty familiar, you know, and they're already fairly experienced photographer, right? If they're a beginning photographer, probably an EM10, you know, with the kit lens, and go from there. So it really depends. And if they're shopping EM1 Mark III price range with kit lens or pro lenses, you know, we're talking a couple $1,000s, then, you know, there's a huge selection out there to choose from other than Olympus in that price range. Well, there is at every price range, but I think it's a lot more competitive, or there's significant differences in that price range than there is in the lower price range. Mr. Claus says, planning a video on the EM10 Mark IV. I was asking if I'm planning a video on the EM10 Mark IV. Curious to compare with the Mark II. Didn't like the regression of the Mark III features. I probably won't get an EM10 Mark IV in my hands because, you know, I have to buy everything. I'm not a visionary, or Olympus doesn't send me anything free, or they don't even send me samples or loaners for that matter. So maybe, you know, what I can do is download the user manual when it's available and look at the comparisons or features that may or may not be there. And then sometimes I add them back in firmware updates. But let's assume that feature-wise, in terms of the menu systems and all the things available through the menu, are exactly the same as the EM10 Mark III. I think that's a safe assumption. The only differences seem to be upgrades in the hardware with the flip down screen and the 20 megapixel sensor, but it looks pretty much identical to the Mark III other than that. So I think the biggest improvement, honestly, not so much the sensor, but the flip down screen is going to be really useful. So that by itself to me is worth an upgrade from the EM10 Mark II, but it depends on your workflow. If you use the custom settings, you know, we have the My Sets in the EM10 Mark II, which they took away in the Mark III. You may not want to get the Mark IV if it doesn't have that, because that was a big deal for me, because it really streamlined my workflow and my professional work, because I used the EM10 professionally for a couple of years, and it was really a big difference in my workflow being able to save the My Sets. But for everything, I'd say for 99% of everyone else, having the My Sets is not a big deal, you know, and take it or leave it. But it's a nice to have, and I don't know why they even streamlined that feature in the EM5 Mark III, which is, yeah, it's a pain for me as a professional, you know. So I look at that camera as sort of my vlogging camera, my enthusiast camera, not professional camera, because they took away a lot of the professional features that the EM5 Mark II had. Oh, good morning, music sound gear. Late to the morning show again, yes. I was late too. It's okay. Rod says the sensor on RP doesn't seem to be a reason to upgrade to full frame. I would upgrade to the Z7, but 6,000, yeah. I mean, 6,000 for a Z7. I'm skipping full frame and APS-C altogether. Going forward, I mean, I have a D750, so I can't say I'm skipping full frame. I've always had a full frame. But if I upgrade, you know, or get another camera that's not Micro Four Thirds, I would look at the GFX line, right? Medium format. I just don't see a reason to go to buy another full frame when I have a D750. You know, yeah, the mirrorless features are nice and everything on the Z series. And, you know, the mirrorless full frame cameras like Sony, Canon. But, you know, as you get better at photography, as you develop your skill sets in photography, the gear matters less, right? So I don't need to get a mirrorless version of my D750, for example, because I can kind of overcome any of the limitations that a regular DSLR might have versus a mirrorless, because, you know, I have a certain skill set at this point or experience. But I have no experience with a medium format, right? So, and it looks, you know, and it looks like it would be fun to have. You know, it wouldn't be like my go-to camera for professional work or anything like that. But as a, you know, as a hobby, as an enthusiast, I'd really love to have a medium format camera. So everybody comes at this from different angles, right? A lot of people look at full frame for professional work, you know, because it does definitely have a huge advantage in low light in being able to pull shadows, right? And event photographers and, you know, like weddings and events and things where you're not able to control the lighting and you want to go into darker scenes. A lot of times you're indoors in low light. You know, having a full frame would make sense in those situations as a professional. You know, as an enthusiast or just casual travel vlogging type stuff, Micro Four Thirds is fine, right? You can, you know, a little bit of noise in the image is okay. But and if you have the means, right, get both. Have your Micro Four Thirds and a full frame. Walter, how are you? What do you think is the upper limit on megapixels for M43 given the small sensor size? Oh, you know, I think 20 megapixels is enough, really. I'm sure they could push, you know, 40, 50 megapixels on a Micro Four Thirds. I mean, if you look at the number of pixels they can put into a smartphone, which has a very tiny sensor, the pixel pitch is really small. So they could just expand that out, just cut a bigger piece of the silicon wafer plate, and make a Micro Four Thirds camera, you know, 40, 50 megapixels, no problem. But you know, you have to call into, with the current sensor tech, you know, you're going to get more noise and less low light performance when you do that. Just like with a lot of cell phones, right? They're no good in low light. And so I would say if there's a change in sensor tech where you can shrink the size of the pixels to a point to where you can fit 40, 50 megapixels on Micro Four Thirds or 100 megapixels, until that technology changes, I don't see the point to go beyond 20, personally. For most people, professional, enthusiast, it doesn't matter. 20 is enough. I mean, look at the new Sony a7S III, 12 megapixels, right? It's not a photo camera, but, you know, nobody complained about the 12 megapixels on that camera, right? They hailed it as, yeah, this is going to be the low light monster for video work and for photography, for that matter. It'll be low light monster. And I guess, what is it, the R5 or the R6, one of those, the Z6, you know, these are all in the 20, 24 megapixel range. The D750, which is a workhorse at 24 megapixels, a lot of professionals use that. So I think as a matter of being practical, there's no reason to go more than that. And as a matter of being, you know, as a technical, if there's a technical reason to do a higher resolution, then they need to change the sensor tech itself from its current like CMOS, you know, design to something new, whatever that might be. Then it says the M10 Mark IV just released. Buying the Mark III would make sense for a new photographer. It's hard to say. It depends. I like the Mark IV because the screen tilts all the way down. I think that's, you know, for the market that camera is intended for, I think that's a great feature over the Mark III. I would buy the Mark IV over the Mark III just for that one thing personally, and recommend it for that one reason. Craig says the M10 Mark IV, it's these Roman numerals. Oh, hold on. Weather alert. It's raining so much they sent out an alert to say it's raining. Joe says the M10 Mark IV has same CAF as M1X and face detect, but the camera specs is only showing contrast. Well, you know, the software to detect faces has nothing to do with the sensor so much, right? Other than designing it for the sensor. But I think if that's true, it has EM1X face detect, then it's software only. It's still going to rely on the contrast detect to actually acquire the focus physically. So yeah, it confused me a little bit too. Because yeah, when I looked at the specs, it says contrast detect in the specs 121 point. So, you know, did they forget to say phase detect on the specs, or or is it really contrast only? Because I don't think the EM10 Mark III was 121 points. So 121 point focus system, like in the EM1s and the M5 Mark III, are all phase detect sensors. So we'll just have to kind of wait and get clarification on that, because yeah, it's a little confusing. I'm leaning towards it will have phase detect because it's saying 121 points. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're both going to need clarification on that, I guess, once the camera comes out and somebody gets it in their hands and can be more specific. Because Joe, you know, Joe's not a hardcore review guy, right? You know, I love Joe Edelman. He's so helpful to the photography community and does so much and puts a lot of time and effort in. But it's, you know, he doesn't talk about gear in a way that, you know, a lot of, you know, he doesn't go into depth, right, into the gear. He just kind of talks about the gear and at a very high level that this is a great camera. But I don't think he would say any camera was bad, because he focuses on the photography and loves solving problems in photography. So like I was saying before, the better your skill set in the photography, the less the gear matters. And that's kind of where Joe is at. He's got such a vast skill set and experience that the gear doesn't matter a whole lot, even though he's in, you know, but he does care about ergonomics, right? The handling of the camera. And that's why he said he switched to Olympus, was mainly the ergonomics. And then when he discovered all the features and everything else, you know, that was just icing on the cake for him. But yeah, Joe's a great guy. So I'm going to wait to see some reviews. I know Peter and Robin, if Joe got it, then Peter and Robin got it as well. And they will probably give you a little more detail. So probably later today, I wouldn't be surprised if there's already some thumbnails up for them from them. Look for Peter, Robin, Jimmy Chang. Those three have been very reliable in getting their hands on cameras pre-release and telling us what it's all about. You know me, I'm Johnny come lately, right? When it comes to cameras, like, how long has this Canon RP been out? And I'm just now talking about it, right? But now it's got all the new firmware. God, when people, you know, and I haven't even gotten around to my XT30, which, you know, yeah, another camera from last year. But I think it's important to use the camera long term before you really start talking about it. At least for me, that's what I can provide, is I can provide true ownership, long-term use of a camera over, say, a lot of the reviewers on YouTube, which only have for a couple of weeks, 30 days sometimes, to use the camera. And if they have enough experience, they don't really need to own the camera that long to kind of give you their opinion on it. But I think the value in my channel is I actually own the cameras and can, you know, compare them against each other at the same time. Walter says he loves the Z7 D850 and used way more than a D850. The Z7 is used way more than a D850. Lighter with equal performance in most situations. Z series is not the best for moving objects. Still behind Sony with continuous AF tracking. Okay, good to know. Appreciate the feedback there. Yeah, Nikon, Walter uses the Z7 a lot. You should sell that D850 before it goes, you know, becomes worthless, right? To the point that you don't want to trade it anymore because they're going to give you pennies on the dollar. At least now you could probably still get $1,000 for it, or maybe 2,000. I don't know what the market is, but that's the problem with my D750. I might get $300 for it if I trade it. And Arthur says, I just pulled back 5 stops from my old Canon 1DS Mark II from a black image and it was perfect. Wow. Yeah. That is an old camera to be able to pull some stops. The EM-10-4 is the perfect camera, and then they go and leave the mic jack. Oh, no mic jack. Wow. Yeah. That is, yeah, that is one thing they really all I can say is I think most people are really just photographers and don't care about the mic jack. But if they had put the mic jack in there, it would have made a lot more press, you know, and they would have sold a lot more cameras just because it has that. Not that most people buying it would care, but in terms of marketing and press, that one thing could have made all the difference, you know, in the marketing. But what do I know, you know? If I was a marketing genius, you know, I would have 1 million subscribers by now, right? Hi, Marcia. How are you? Good morning. Oh, you're in Florida. That's right. You're in Florida. Another early bird. I don't normally get up this early. AJ, how are you? Robert Polton says, evening from Japan. EM-10-4 seems like a good entry camera if you're new to the system. UHS-2 slot is good, but is it needed? Well, I think it is needed because for 2 reasons. One is, you know, it does 8 frames per second or a little more than that, I think. And a UHS-2 card will make a difference. If you do any kind of bracketing shots, UHS-2 card will make a difference. It's subtle, you know, well, it's not subtle. It's pretty significant difference with UHS-2 card in the handling and performance of the camera over longer periods of shooting, right? Like high-speed shutter, bracketing, focus bracketing, or exposure bracketing, art bracketing. All of those things will make the camera feel a lot snappier. And then the second reason is in post-processing, when you're downloading those images off on your computer, if you have a UHS-2 card reader, compatible reader, most laptops don't have that, or computers. Some do. But you need to get a separate UHS-2 card reader usually, and you can offload those images a lot faster, particularly large movies like 4K video and things. So I would say definitely every camera should have UHS-2 now because it is significantly faster and makes the camera perform better. But 9 times out of 10, I'm using a UHS-1 card in my cameras. I'm not doing those kinds of things at a pace that I would need a UHS-2 card. The second thing is the UHS-2 cards are, really expensive. I mean, if I want a 128 gig UHS-2 card, it's probably $100 or more or less. I mean, it's a lot more money versus I can, it's like $30 for UHS-1. So in the end, it's not really needed. I use UHS-1 a lot, most of the time. But if UHS-2 was more affordable, I'd probably only use UHS-2 because it definitely makes a difference. And Rod says, lately I've been shooting in the dark and found the limits of MFT. Would like to keep ISO and shutter speed down, therefore wandering eye to full frame. Yeah, I mean, definitely there's some, if you want to get more shadow detail, stay around 24 megapixels on full frame. I wouldn't go, higher than that, because that's where you seem to be able to pull the shadows. But I haven't looked at full frame in a while. I don't know if the new Z7s or the newer like Panasonics, whatever the full frames are out there, the Sonys. DP Review has a really good utility for comparing things and pushing and pulling shadows. I think they call it their ISO invariance chart. That's a really handy tool because you can compare all cameras against each other. So it makes what I did on my last two videos a little bit redundant, really, but I would check those things out. They're pretty good. Hi, good morning, Corna. Peter, I would put it stronger. Cell phones are really bad in low light conditions. Oh, okay. I'm a little bit behind. I'm about 10 minutes behind on the chat. Let me read faster. Marsh says, I just started using Topaz Denoise AI. It does a wonderful job for low light. Yes, I've heard many good things about it. I didn't care for it personally, but it does work well, no question. Olympus just announced the 100 to 400 lens for 1500 this morning. Ha! Are you kidding me? Oh, that can't be their 150 to 400 with the teleconverter in, right? Is that the lens? I'll have to. Wow, that's a big announcement. I missed that. Yeah, and Arthur makes a good point about has some benefits, but the size and weight of the lenses isn't one of them. I mean, look at this. This is the 14 to 150 equivalent in full frame, right? It's not even 14 to 150. This is like a 12 to 180. F4 something to F5 or 6. I mean, this is humongous. And then when you zoom it out, it's like, come on. And then here's my EM10 Mark II, right? I mean, I don't have the 14 to 150 here, but and if you start getting faster glass, yeah. This is probably the same size as like a 50 millimeter f1.2. Which, anyway, you see where I'm, that's why I don't shoot full frame anymore. I don't think there's enough benefit in the image quality to offset the size and weight that you have to carry around. For me, some people don't mind it. They're like, if you can't carry 10 pounds, what's wrong with you, right? But for me, I don't see the point in carrying all that. AJ, just watching reviews from Peter and Robin and the new 100 to 400 lens, I'm now thinking what items I could sell to pay. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know they had a 100 to 400 coming out. I think I'm confusing it with the 150 to 400. That's supposed to be really expensive. I didn't know they were coming out with a more entry-level one. Probably a tornado warning alert. I don't get tornadoes here so much where I live, Marcia. Flash flood warnings, a lot, but I'm a little bit elevated relative to my neighbors, so they're the ones that'll get flooded, not me. Got John Matthews, how are you? They could go APS-C size sensors. Most M43 lenses would work. JVC has a camcorder that does that. Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of Micro Four Thirds lenses will work on APS-C. You know, it's just about the image circle, because APS-C isn't that much bigger than Micro Four Thirds. Could PDAF be disabled in software? No, PDAF has to be. Robert Polton's asking about phase detect autofocus. It could be disabled, yes. I suppose, right? Because it's going to have a different set of wires coming off the sensor than the contrast system, because it's got to give different data. So I don't see why they couldn't disable it, but it depends on how they design the sensor. If the sensor combines the autofocus data before it gets to the processing side, then no. If they design the because there's a lot that goes on between the sensor and the final processing of the image. So it depends at what point they would be able to disable the PDAF, you know. They'd have to design circuits specifically to do that. So technically, yes, they could do it. Did they do it? Probably not. They probably just didn't put the phase detect sensors on the sensor to begin with. Corner thinks if the EM10 Mark IV had phase detect, it would be bad for the EM5 Mark III sales. Yeah, it would be. Yes, I agree. Because, you know, I personally, I don't care about weather sealing. I'd be happy with an EM10 with a mic jack. EM10 Mark IV with a mic jack and phase detect, I'd be really happy. But since it doesn't have phase detect, doesn't have mic jack, I have to get an EM5 Mark III. So I'm a case study in their marketing, right? I just don't see a need to buy an EM10 Mark IV. And would pay more for the other features on the M5 Mark III. So Peter and Robin already have their videos out, and they already did an EM10-4. I didn't see it yet. They must have come out within the last 12 hours, because I went to bed about 8 hours ago, and I didn't see any thumbnails from them. And Peter's done a review. Okay, they're all out. Okay, good. And then Walter says, excellent point about the gear. Famous adventure photographer Galen Royal often shot with a Nikon N70 film camera. His images are graced by Nat Geo. Yes. I am too slow on my smartphone. Yeah, me too. I hate shooting with a smartphone. I do it. I use the camera on my phone for like taking notes and things and remembering certain things, but it's more like just a utility or tool. It's very utilitarian for me. It's not for real photography. Hate shooting with smartphone. Yeah. Oh, Corner says he meant with typing, not shooting. Okay. I don't like typing or shooting on a cell phone. David Crooks, good morning. Good to see you. Yeah, it's raining. Maybe tomorrow. I'll text you or something tonight about maybe doing some sunflowers tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow. That might be a fun trip. David Crooks leads a local photography club here in the area, and I've been trying to get out with the group since I found out about them, and you know, just my schedule and good weather and this pandemic thing has all sort of crippled a lot of the efforts to get together. But maybe individually, you know, tomorrow. I question how many people really need the super high capacity cards. Video perhaps, but not stills. Well, I don't know, Walter. How many megapixels is a 48 megapixel image on your memory card? You know, you would, I can't imagine you need about 128 gig card regularly if you shoot on a job, right? Alexar 64 gig UHS-2 cards go for $30. Performance is decent. Wow, that's cheap. That's cheap. Maybe they've come down. I looked at some about a month ago and I was like, I ain't spending that. Because I can't use 64 gig. I need at least 128, if not a 256 gig card if I'm gonna do UHS-2 because I do a lot of video. So no way. Oh, the USB-C port might allow for a mic jack, according to Craig. You know, according to Peter Forsgaard, Craig is saying that he said that autofocus works well. He's disappointed on mic jack, but the USB-C port might allow for mic input adapter. That would be nice, but they probably have to pay a license for that, right? So we'll see. And Marsha's confirming 1500 for the 100 to 400. If it's like the kit lens level, like my 75 to 300, I'm not spending $1,500 for just a little bit more reach. I'll have to see what the image quality is out of it. I know image, you know, Olympus makes great lenses. That's why the 75 to 300, it's okay. There'd have to be a significant improvement in the 100 to 400 though for me to make that leap. It's not a, the one, Don is saying the 100 to 400, it's not a pro lens, but it is water resistant. Oh, okay. I mean, that alone would be worth it, right, for a lot of people. Because that's a sort of a wildlife lens, right? And it weighs, Marsha's saying it weighs over 2 pounds. You guys should start streaming, because I don't know any of this stuff. I should be in the know, right? Because I'm the one talking about Olympus. I don't know nothing. I appreciate all the feedback. But when this stuff comes out like overnight while I'm sleeping, how am I supposed to know? Because Olympus doesn't tell me jack, you know, beforehand. The weight of the full frame is all very well when you are young, but when you get a little older, it's a pain. Yeah, I agree. So 50 megs for a Nikon Z7 uncompressed or lossless compressed is about 50 meg. Wow. So 10 images is what? 500 meg? So you're only half a gig there. So 100 images would be 5 gig. Yeah, you could get away with 32 or 64 gig if you're only doing photography, right? You know, you got to double that because usually you do RAW plus JPEG, but 64 gig would be enough. And which is good because those freaking CF Express, or what do they call those cards that they put in those Nikons? Those things are expensive, man. My God. I mean, I was looking at a Z6 because there was some really good deal last year. And then I was like, well, I need to add another couple $100 for the memory card and card reader, right? Because you need a card reader for it too. And I was like, I don't know if that's worth it. And Robert Poulton says, just wondering because the reviews are saying that it's the same sensor as the M5 III. So if PDAF isn't available, maybe it's something that could be hacked. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Like I said, if it may not even be. It may have been disabled before it even gets to the firmware, right? So if you don't have access beyond the firmware, you may not be able to activate it. But it's curious. It'll be interesting to see if somebody comes up with a hack. If it's hackable, somebody will hack it. John Matthews says, I got a used EM1 Mark II rather than the EM5 Mark III. I think that's tough competition. Yes, Agreed. The size advantage is gone when you add that grip. To some extent. To some extent. The problem is, all right, so this is the EM10, basically the same thing. You know, the grip is about the same on my EM5. It's not that big, and then when you compare it to the EM1, it's pretty substantial, the difference in size. And like I said, I always like to put full plates on the bottom of my cameras. So I've added this plate. So now the difference is even more, right, than the EM5. So you know, if you're only going to have one camera, get the M1 Mark II over the M5 Mark III, because the grip is so much superior to the M5. Even with the one I recommended, like this, there's no comparison. And the size and weight difference is not that much overall because you're using the same lenses and everything. So I would agree that it's adding a grip to the M5 mitigates the difference in size, but it's still smaller. Good morning, Warren, or good day. Do you think it's worth updating the M1 Mark II to the M1 Mark III? Excuse me. Only if you want specific features of the M1 Mark III, like if you want handheld high-res shot, if you want live ND. Those are the two main feature differences between the two. In terms of software, right? Those things are pretty big deal. They're really nice to have, you know, handheld versions of that. If you want better image stabilization in video, it's a full stop better, which is a big deal. It's twice as good, effectively, as the M1 Mark III. I can tell you, it's really good. The other thing it has is, and it's more video related, but the audio is much cleaner on the M1 Mark III as well. So you get better image stabilization and better audio on the M1 Mark III for video. For photography, the only significant advantage is the handheld high-res and live ND. And the Star AF is really nice if you like to do astrophotography. But on the photography side, most of those things can be done on the M1 Mark II, right? You just need a tripod to do high-res shot. Starry Sky AF, you know, just manually focus with your eye, right? I mean, it's, you know, using the screen. So you don't really need that. It's nice to have, but you don't really need it. And live ND, just put an ND filter on the front for, like, you know, $30 ND filter. And, you know, you don't need live ND, right? So on the photography side, you can pretty much do anything the M1 Mark III can do on an M1 Mark II. You don't need to get the M1 Mark III for photography. But if you're into video, there's some significant upgrades there with the IBIS and the sound quality. Those two things you cannot just duplicate like you can with photography. So I don't know. I don't think it's worth it to upgrade to that unless you really want those particular features. Walter says photography that's manageable. My stitched PT GUI. Oh, you're talking to Walter. Robert Pulton says 256 gig UHS-2 is $85. Can't guarantee. Oh, yeah. $85. See, I think I paid $20 for UHS-1. 256 gig or $30? No, I paid $50 for a UHS-1 256 gig V30 card. I paid $50. But that was a SanDisk Extreme, right? Like a brand name. Not that Lexar isn't a brand name, but it's SanDisk is, you know, usually you pay a little more for SanDisk. Roberto says, I'm going to invest in Luminar. Am I making the right decision? It just seems so easy and time saving. I'm an amateur. I don't use Luminar enough to tell you if it's worth it. It seems like a competent. I used the Luminar version 3 last year or 2 years ago, and it's certainly a competent video editor or photo editor. I'd say, but there's so many choices out there. You got to go with the one that connects with your brain the best, right? Works with your brain, right? Are all the controls in a place you would think they should be? Does it feel intuitive? Then that's the software you should go with, because there's some software where, God, I'm having a hard time getting my brain around sometimes. Because I'll download the 30-day trials and you have this learning curve, right? But if Luminar clicks with you right away, I wouldn't hesitate to get it, because it's more about the being able to work with the software than it is what can the software do. So, but I haven't used it enough to be able to tell you if it's snappy and fast, performs well, has all the features you would need. And I think it's what, $79, and sometimes it goes for less than that, maybe a little more. It's somewhere, it's under $100, right? And in that price range, I would consider Adobe Photoshop Elements, because of the data asset management side, meaning it can manage your photos as well, organize your photos and things like that much better than, say, Luminar, because I don't think Luminar has a really good photo managing side. It just uses the simple file structure type photo management, whereas Adobe has a much more sophisticated photo management system, and it's about the same price. So that's the only other software you might want to download and try for a little while and compare the photo management features. And then, of course, if it's intuitive and everything else. But it's going to be a little slower overall than Luminar. Luminar is a little more streamlined because it lacks those other features, but it's going to run faster and run a little smoother. If we're talking about that price range, I think Adobe Photoshop Elements is another one to consider. Photoscape X is also really interesting. They have a free version, which I really like. So you can try the Photoscape X free version and see if that works well. They have a paid version as well. I think it's $40, but in the under $100 price range, Photoscape X, Luminar, Photoshop Elements, those are three you should try that before you make a final decision. And Marsha likes Luminar. That's good. Yes, Don says the Starry Sky AF works really well. I can confirm that. It does work very well. And Craig says, Jimmy Red says the 100 to 400 image quality is very good, but decreases somewhat as the focal length increases to 400. Viewing angle is about 3 degrees. So aiming is a challenge, yeah. But 3 degrees 100 yards away is still a pretty good wide angle. I mean, that's what it's made for, right? But you probably want to get one of those eye-dot scope things if you want to try and capture birds in flight with it. The only software I never got to work was Affinity. Maybe it's my Mac. Maybe. I've never used Affinity. And let's see. Luminar has been described as Lightroom on steroids. I don't know if I would go that far. Lightroom is pretty awesome. Too many colorful presets, yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of people that like Luminar, for all of the features it has. I haven't used the latest version. And it's when I used it a year and a half ago, it was as competent as any other software in that price range in terms of pulling shadows and highlights and things like that. But I still found, I subscribe to the Lightroom thing. I have to, because of my pro work. It's the only one that has, this is the other thing, Photoshop Elements has layering abilities, HDR, it has so many features built in at that price point. It's just a little bit sluggish on slower computers, and certainly more sluggish on any computer than, say, Luminar would be, or Affinity, because those programs are much more streamlined and lightweight. They have lots of great features, but I think Adobe, you know, they did a good job with Elements, in my opinion. I mean, I used Elements for 2 or 3 years before I switched over to Lightroom. And I still have it installed on my old laptop, Photoshop Elements 8 or 9 or 10. I forget what version, maybe 11. I mean, it's really old. They've had about a dozen versions of Photoshop Elements since I got mine. But it still has all the features of the full-fledged Photoshop. It's kind of like comparing the EM1 with the EM10. They both do great jobs, right, at taking photos, have a lot of features, but the EM1 has more. But ultimately, you'll get there with the EM10. Same thing with Photoshop Elements. It has a lot of the features that'll get you there. Close to the paid, the subscription full version of Photoshop. Wow, it looks like I'm all caught up on the comments. Am I still connected? Let me take a break here. Let me do a quick thumbnail search on Peter and Robin, what they've been up to here. So, yep, there's Peter 6 hours ago. See, this is all when I was sleeping. EM10 Mark IV. You can tell I've been shopping watches and laptops, right? Because of all these thumbnails I got for laptops. Let's see. E-M10. So Peter has it. I don't see Robin's yet. B&H has announced it. Man, everybody. See, 6 hours ago. Everybody came out at the same time, freaking 6 hours ago. Man, 6 hours ago was 2 in the morning for me. I was out cold. Hey, there I am. Look at that. All my videos. Awesome. That's right. robtrek rocks, man. Anyway, just kidding. Jimmy Chang. Oh, I don't see Jimmy Chang or Robin. EM10 Mark IV Robin. Wong. See, he was probably sleeping like me, right? Because he's not showing. Let's just go to his channel and see. So he has the 100 to 400 with no EM10. All right. So I hope your dog is still okay. I haven't seen her for a while. Yeah, she's doing great. Thanks. Darren says, I'm interested in the Olympus 100 2.8 macro. Yeah, that looks like a really neat lens. Definitely. Yeah, I went through them today. The Adorama Olympus guy did a good one on both the EM10-4 and the 100-400. Okay, I'll have to go through them. Like I said, I just woke up and started a stream. I only saw the one from Joe Edelman. I don't know why that came up first for me. Probably because I watched his live stream the other day, so his thumbnail came up first today. I didn't see Peter's thumbnail, and Robin hasn't done one yet. Like I said, they all came out while I was sleeping. Robin's probably got his around the corner, though. It'll probably be posted before I'm done with my stream. Yeah, John. John was surprised by the EM10's flippy down screen. I like that. I'm glad they put that on there. That's going to be That's the best improvement they've done. They should have, yeah. I wish they had more cameras like that. Cause that's just not cutting it for me. Being able to flip all the way down, now you can do this, and you could, I bet you could even like L bracket and flip down, right? Maybe not because of this. No, you can do it because I used to put my Pen PL8 on a bracket and it would flip down. Hi Barana, how are you? Because there's room here. It sits back a little bit when it's on a bracket, but I could still see it. Because I used to do this a lot. This was my go-to camera for vlogging and everything, man. This is, and it's a good looking camera too, right? I mean, this lens on it's a little bulky with the hood, but this is a nice, this PL8. I mean, I got this kind of by accident because I won an auction. I didn't think I would get it for that price. I just put a bid and then I ended up winning. But yeah, it's a great little camera. I'm glad they put that on the M10. Wait till Casey gets his hands on it. He may not even bother because there's no mic jack, you know? But that guy kills me. I love Camera Conspiracy's channel. You guys should check it out if you haven't. I've been watching him since, man, forever. His channel was tiny, you know, and I went on and I talked about his channel before it kind of exploded. I was telling everybody you should go watch his channel. He's really funny, and he only had like 1,000 subscribers at the time. It was smaller than my channel because I had like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers at the time. And I said, yeah, go check it out. And then, so if you want to start a YouTube channel, just let me know and I'll announce it, give you a shout out. You'll explode because everyone I talk about explodes when I talk about their channel. You know, Peter and Robin came along. I started talking about their channel. They exploded. Just kidding. They certainly deserve every subscriber they got. They work really hard. Same thing like with Jimmy Chang. Those guys are all really hard working. I mean, it's a lot of work to run a YouTube channel. So, you know, every subscriber is like, wow, it means a lot because it's not easy, you know, to get your first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And then to have 10,000, 20,000, you know, 100,000. Like, look at Gerald Undone. My God, he's exploded. I don't even know how many subscriber he's up to. Oh, sorry, Roberto has a legit question. How do you connect a mic jack? You need this. Let's see. Any luck, I'll find it right away. Haha. That's right. Mr. Unorganized found something. You need this thing. Is this gonna focus? Yeah. Upside down. It's a SEMA adapter. And on the back of the camera you have this notch, right? So this slides in. The hot, oh, why do I got a hot shoe protector in there? This slides in like this. Like that. And then right here on the front is a little mic jack. It's awesome. Awesome. All you need is like a little $3 lavalier mic that you can just run up and clip here. And that's it. This sells for like $60 with its own mic. I don't like the mic that came with it. I just use a simple lav mic. But you can try it with the mic that comes with it. I didn't think it was very good. $3 lav mic was better, to be honest. But yeah, these sell for about $60 on eBay, brand new. You might be able to find used ones for less. I think it was $100 list price, but they sell for like 60 bucks all day long. Oh, you're gonna stay up and see if the Pen F2 is announced? I would be shocked. I would be shocked if there's a Pen F2. Yeah, Roberto, if you look at if you search for EPL8 on my channel, there's a couple of vlogs. There's a couple of vlogs that I've done with this camera, and I show you exactly how I set it up with the Boya mic, like ways to get around sort of some challenges with vlogging with this, if that's what you're into. But a lot of my early vlogs from 2018, most of those, and early 2019, most of those I did with this camera right here. I vlogged with this. And then when I got the M5 Mark III, that's my go-to vlogging camera now. Plato says, Jimmy probably has a live stream tomorrow. Yeah. That's right. He normally streams on Wednesdays, right? Oh, I'm so sad about his dad passed away recently. I know what he's going through. And Walter says, when choosing, you're still here, Walter? I thought you'd be at work. When choosing software, look for groups on Facebook and see what complaints are there. They will be vocal on the problem areas. Pay attention if they are Windows or Mac. Sometimes platform matters. That's a good point. If you're already pretty competent with Windows or Mac, whatever version you have, whatever operating system you use, I guess it doesn't matter. Just read all the different things, look at the reviews on Amazon, go to the forums, see what kind of problems people are having. It's just hard as a beginner, like when you start seeing complaints from other people, you don't know, it's hard for you to kind of categorize, is that a legitimate complaint, or is that just, they don't know what they're doing, right? So, but do your due diligence, right? Basically, is the word. When you're spending $50 to $100, you should do your due diligence and see which one works best for you. But yeah, a lot of people say, from my experience here, people say Luminar is very good. Affinity, Photoscape X, and Adobe Photoshop Elements. No one talks about that, but I would recommend that one over all the rest. When you get into higher end, there's Lightroom and Capture One. Those things, those are both excellent. And Roberto says, I started a EM10 channel 6 months ago and only got 45 subs. Really, Roberto? Is it still going? I'll put the link to it here if you want. Let me see. If you want, let me know if you want. I'll look it up and put a link to it. John Softly, yes. How are you? Man, how long you been here? Because I started about a little over an hour ago. And I feel like I should end it soon, but I'll see. I'll stay up to about maybe another half hour or so. But I'm glad to see. I set up this time zone. Remember, I sent you that email. You emailed me, and I sent you back, and I said I'm going to try a different time zone or time for these streams. And so this was for like you and Deb O'Connor and Peter. Not Peter necessarily, but I know those two, you and Deb, were saying that this was a much better timeline for you guys. And then last week when I did this, a lot of you chimed in and said, yeah, this is a great time. So yeah, according to my thing here, it says there's 40 some people here. So it seems like, yeah, it's a good time, right? If there's only 1 or 2 people here, I'd be like, well, maybe it's not worth getting up this early for me. But anyhow, why would I get a text this early? Oh, it's... Yeah, I get a I get a lot of not a lot, but sometimes people would tell me that the live chat versus top chat. And I'm looking actually at the live chat when I'm going through the comments, but what you see on the screen in my window, not on the side, but in my window right here, This is, I have no control over Top Chat, Live Chat, what shows there. But that's, I don't go by this here. I go by what I see on my screen, which is live chat. So, but I can't change the one over here to say to live chat. It only pulls up the top chat window. And Tyron says, "Hi, I'm new to photography. I recently got the M10 Mark II. I'm using a Lexar Platinum 2 300X SDC." Yes, you bought the right card. That's an excellent card. It's not a UHS-2 card if that's what you're asking, because it says specifically U1. But let me look at the specs real quick and see. It says here UHS-1 technology, 45 megabits and class 10. Yeah, that card will work fine. It's a little bit slow for video. Like, I wouldn't use it for video. I think, yeah, regular HD video like 720p you'll be able to get by. But for full HD video, 1080p or 4K video, well, you don't have 4K on the M10. You might run into a problem, because this is a really cheap card. You may not. Try it. Try and record some 1080p video, and if it works fine, great. If not, you may need to get a faster card. But for photography, it'll be fine. But for 10 bucks for 64 gig, that's what it was showing on my screen. That's a killer deal. But yeah, it's not the fastest card, and it really only matters if you're going to be doing video. And PNW writer, hey there, Rob. I watched the replay due to work conflicts. Oh, okay. Now I know the time. I'm in big time. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I might start a little earlier. I shouldn't say that. I have a hard time starting on time at 7 o'clock. It's 7 a.m. in the morning for me. Plato's my only viewer. Okay, Roberto, let me look up at your channel real quick. What's the name of your channel? Is it just your name? Let me see. I assume it's just your name. There you are. Yeah, it is you. Okay. So there's Roberto's channel. Check it out. I haven't seen it yet, I don't think. It looks familiar for some reason, but... And Brana says, yes, this is a good time for me. 555. What is 555? I've seen that come up a few times. I don't know what that means. Is it an acronym for something? Brana says, have a question about the new Olympus lens 100 to 400. If used with the MC14, will it be 140 to 560? Yeah, that sounds right. What about the f-stop? Just multiply the teleconverter 1.4 adds one stop to the f-stop. So if it's an f4 lens, it'll now be an f5.6. And that's why they make the teleconverters at a 1.4 and a 2.0, because 1.4 is one stop difference in f-stop, and 2 is two stops difference, right? So if you have an f4 lens, using the 1.4 teleconverter will make it an f5.6. If you know the differences between stops on the aperture scale, right? And if you have an f4 lens and use a 2x teleconverter, it now becomes an f8 lens. And that's why they make them, I think, in those particular magnifications. If you're ever wondering why they pick those, because it just makes easy math if you're used to working with cameras. If you're used to working with camera math. That should be my next video, right? Camera math. You need more hits. I was thinking Rob Ditto. Liz Deller, he speaks my language. All right. David Crook says, that is my question. If the 100 to 400 even accepts a teleconverter works, if it isn't a Pro lens, I don't know. They may need to do a firmware update or something too to make it work together. You're welcome, Barana. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in the know when it comes to Olympus. They don't tell me nothing ahead of time. And I don't scour the rumor sites and all of that. Just don't have time for that. You know, when it comes out, you know, the Peter, Robin, Jimmy, Joe, all those guys will have videos on it. So you know, I'm content waiting for their videos rather than scouring rumor sites. And because there was that window where the M5 Mark III hadn't come out yet, so I was trying to speculate and talk about that camera before it was released or announced. And that, you know, yeah, I got a lot of hits, but when I look back at those videos, it's a freaking disaster. I didn't know nothing. So ever since those videos came out that I made with the M5 Mark III, I don't talk about pre-releases or rumors as much, right? Because you don't know until it actually is released. And I just, you know, I made a fool of myself, really. I didn't know jack. Oh, sorry, I got it. Man, it's a busy morning for texting today. Yeah. Yeah, Walter's asking about the live chat. Yeah, what I'm seeing, all right, I'll just show you. What I'm seeing, Walter, is, where is the screen? I'm looking at this here, live chat, right? What you guys are seeing in your window is this over here, right? With the top chat, but I'm reading the live chat section. Hopefully that clears up what I was trying to explain earlier. How do I get back to this? Because nobody wants to look at all this other jibber jabber on here. All kinds of things going on this screen. Current viewers, playbacks, likes. All interesting stuff. Man, it's like I got more people here now. Roberto says, we all came here for your tech ability and a guy with a camera persona that we all love. Oh, thank you. Good to see you too, Peter. Let's see. I played, I think, about $800. What are you guys talking about? I think the M1 Mark II. Oh, okay. Yeah. Talking about the M1 Mark II. Yeah, used ones are going for less than 1,000 all day long. You know, if you really shop, you can probably get it for 800. But I wouldn't, I would be careful buying used cameras. Like, if I ever have a camera for sale, like one of mine, don't buy it. Because guaranteed I dropped it 100 times. It might look okay, and it might work great when you get it, but it might break the very next day. So don't ever buy a camera from me. I'm just telling you now. Oh, brand new rod for the wow, that's a killer deal. And there's some new updates for cameras and lenses. I'll have to update my firmwares and things. I've been a little behind on that. I mean, I do it, I think back in March, I took some time to update everything, but that's like, you know, that's a long time in digital world to wait 3-4 months for an update, or to check for updates anyway. Love that all day long. I kind of miss what you're talking about there, Liz. And Rod says, unfortunately, I already have one. Yeah, I would love to have, I don't know, you know, the only camera that I would get if I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, a GFX, maybe, just because it's medium format, but there's nothing full frame or APS-C right now that really interests me over Micro Four Thirds, because you know you're going to pay the penalty in overall system size and weight. And the glass is freaking expensive on full frames, and a lot of the medium are APS-C size. Yeah, I'm so invested in Olympus, or Micro Four Thirds, I should say, that trying, you know, going into full frame or APS-C just doesn't make any sense, or going back to full frame, because I still have my D750 with a few lenses. And Spartacus says, I really want that new 100 to 400, but that price is not very consumer, is it? Great features though. Yeah, like I said, I'd like to see some more testing on it. Because, you know, when you see people testing out like the 75 to 300, like Robin did a review on it, the 75 to 300 lens, this one. He took amazing images with it. I mean, tack sharp. But I don't, you know, but he lives out in the tropical, like Malaysia, right? Where it's always sunny and hot. You know, where I live here, like it's been raining for a week here. Well, I'm exaggerating, but it's been raining a long time. You can't use a lens like this in the rain. It's just not, it's just not, you're not going to get good images because it's too slow. So the 100 to 400 is going to have the same issue, because I imagine it's a similar aperture where you need to be in good light. That's why I laughed at Canon's like 800 millimeter f11. I was like, are you kidding me? You know, you're going to use that for one very specific thing, and you have to be really prepared to work with f11. It's not a lens that you can just go out and start shooting in good light. You have to be in excellent light, or have to have very special circumstances to be able to shoot with f11. Medium format is premium cost and weight, but the trade-off might be worth it in this case. I don't think the trade-off with full frame or APS-C is worth it for Micro Four Thirds, but going medium format, that trade-off may be worth it. I mean, you're not going to buy telephoto zooms with a medium format camera, right? You're usually going to buy the primes, which are small enough. So, you know, when you buy full frame, yeah, you start looking at 70 to 200s, 300 millimeters, you know, the frickin' 800 millimeter f11 that Canon has. You're looking at crap like that on full frame. But when you buy medium format, you're not looking for telephoto lenses that are going to be humongous, right? You're buying it for the landscape. So you might be buying like a 40 millimeter, 50 millimeter lens. And it doesn't have to be, you know, f1.2, right? It can be like an f4, and you'll still get amazing depth of field and all of that. So going medium format is a whole different kind of experience with photography or gear and cameras. So that's why I don't worry about it. Oh, okay, Walter. We'll see you later. Let's see. Golly. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, Walter's a great guy. I was talking about him earlier, that he really helped me a lot getting started in photography, explaining a lot of the basic terminology, because he was the one I called and asked, you know, what is aperture? You know, back, you know, 8 years ago. So he helped me out a lot, and he was actually when we met, I bought a Sony NEX as my first interchangeable digital camera, and over time, you know, within a year, I decided to go with Nikon because he shoots Nikon. I've since parted to Micro Four Thirds, but anyhow, thank you, Roberto. Man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the coffee jar. And then Plato says, I found robtrek when I was looking for Olympus tutorials. He saved my life on the Ali menu. Oh, good to know. It's good when my channel connects with people, right? I don't connect with everyone, but when I do, it's a wonderful thing, right? And Fancy Bunny asks, what do you think is the best lens for video work? I'd say the 12 to 40 Pro f2.8. You know, for like event type video work where you don't know where you're going to be in the event and you're moving around a lot. Great autofocus, nice and fast, and the zoom range is adjustable. So that would be my recommendation. If you don't have the, you know, if you don't want to spend the money on a 12 to 40 Pro, then your kit lens is good enough. The 14 to 42 is just, you need more light. Because video work really requires fast glass indoors. Outdoors, it doesn't matter. I use outdoors for vlogging. I use this 12 to 32 kit lens from Panasonic. You know, this is an f3.5 to f something. Outdoors in good light, kit lens is fine. Because, you know, video is only up to 4K in our cameras, right? And kit lens is well sharp enough to handle that type of resolution. You're not going to be able to tell the difference in resolution between a kit lens and a pro lens in video work, but it's in the autofocusing and low light focusing. Because it has a wider aperture, the pro lenses are going to be superior. Wishing for or comparing full frame versus MFT, waste of time. The grass is always greener on the other side. Yeah, it's just hard to cut. It's true. I would panic running around the woods, the beach, and the desert with medium format. Aren't they made for studio use or fine weather? Yeah, but just put a plastic bag over it if you're worried about it, I say, right? They sell those, you know, I have one, those things that cover the camera. I mean, I don't like to go out when it's cloudy, so if it's raining, forget it, you know, but it's not a big deal, really. You can just cover the camera. Like I said, with anything, you just take care and do what makes sense for whatever gear you have. If it has weather sealing, you can be a little more flexible, like hang it around your neck and not worry about the rain. If it's not, just keep it in your bag till you get to wherever, then use an umbrella and or plastic bag when you get there. And John says, every time I put my 75-18, I think robtrek because I dropped it. Yeah, you dropped it when I'm packing a small dent. I know, I drop everything. A man with a camera is very fantastic. I haven't really used that slogan in a while, the guy with a camera. I saw another channel's using that. There's a channel called Guy with a Camera. I watched one or two videos. It's okay. I think he's just starting out. I don't remember. He might be huge. I can't remember. David Crook, looks like your side of the Potomac is getting the heavy rain today. Yeah, it's pouring outside. It is pouring out. Rod says plastic bag, you take that when you're feeling sick. Hi, Jean-Marc. How are you? Great to see you too. I'm glad you could join. The Phase 1 IQT is 150 megapixels meant for location and outdoor work. Okay. I know nothing about that. That's probably like a $30,000 camera. And what studio you filming in? Oh, this is just a green screen. It's not a studio. Yeah. It's just something I found online. I can switch it up. Let's see. Where's my... If I switch it up though, I'll probably end up like crashing the stream. Let's see what else I got here. I was thinking about doing this one. But the problem is I didn't get the white balance to quite match. Like the white balance is different than me. So it's obvious I'm in front of a green screen, right? And then I was thinking about maybe just some books. But again, it's a white balance issue. See, this is very warm. I'd have to warm up the white balance to kind of match. Because this looks just so fake. Let me move this over to my... Yeah, this looks totally fake. The other one, the blue screen I was using, the studio was blue. It looked fake, but it looked fake because everybody uses that, so it looks real, if that makes any sense. I hate these books. Let me go back to... I like the space one. I like this one. Social distancing. Star Trek background. Yeah, this one, right? Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I can kind of go over here and type on my keyboard. Or push some buttons on the screen here. It's down here? Yeah. I'm slightly dark on the monitor. Maybe. I look okay on my screen. Let me see. Yeah, I don't want to... Let me see if I click it a notch. There, I'm a little brighter now. Inside the TARDIS. Oh yeah, TARDIS background. That would be cool, wouldn't it? I've been watching a lot of frickin' Doctor Who lately. The classic one. Oh my god. It's like what's the thingamajig? Who are you guys' favorite doctors? I mean, you know, in the classic side, I'd say John Pertwee. I think that's his name. And then Baker, whatever his name is. Those two guys. I like the most. More interesting would be who's your favorite companion for the Doctor, right? Because most of his companions are just useless. You know, Sarah was okay, but she was kind of annoying. I mean, I love Sarah Jane, right? But I think as a companion, it's just she would be kind of annoying. Like Romana was really good, right? At least she was useful. She was another Time Lord. Oh, you got an autographed book from Tom Baker. That's cool. And Darren doesn't understand Doctor Who at all. Yeah. It's definitely not for everyone, right? And Roberto says he married her. What? Tom Baker married Sarah Jane? I forget her real name. I didn't know that. I never read into the biographies and things of these actors and actresses. I guess you mean Tom Baker, my favorite, but there was also Colin Baker. Yeah, no, I mean Tom Baker. Yes. Oh, he married Romana. Oh, okay. Oh, well, I'll have to rewatch some of those episodes with a different eye, right? Knowing that they got married. That's cool. Sony cameras have daylights. Oh, that's right. We're a camera channel, right? Or stream. Does anybody have any questions about Olympus or anything? uh, the second one, the blonde one. Yeah, the little short blonde one. Yeah, she always remind me of like a little bunny rabbit. I can just picture like little whiskers and a red nose on her. She has that kind of face. Oh, the BBC has some hard. Yeah, I'll find some. I'll find some. I'll do a Doctor Who episode of live stream one day. But it's funny, you know, you watch these old episodes and then you watch some new episodes of other series. I noticed that the last episode of Last Generation, or the last episode of Next Generation, you know, where Picard was going back and forth in time, is very similar to an episode with Tom Baker in it, where he was not he, you know, he always goes back and forth in time, but the villain was going back and forth in time or something, or lived a long time. I forget. It's been a while since I've seen that episode. But the storyline is parallel. So I feel like Star Trek Next Generation stole that plot and storyline from Doctor Who from the 70s. Oh, Brana says, what do I think about the M10 Mark IV? Yeah, I really like that they have a flip down screen now so that you can do selfies and things. I mean, you can use it for more than that, but that is a big deal. And I like that they have the 20 megapixel sensor in there now, because I know that that's a better sensor than was in the other two cameras. Not way better, but a little bit better. So that's the main thing I like about it. And it's a little smaller and lighter than the previous version. But the main thing is that flip down screen. Everything else is Olympus. It's very good. You know, everything that makes Olympus great is in that camera. The only thing that I think it was missing was the mic jack, which they should have added. You know, that's the only thing. But if you don't care about video, and I don't think a lot of people care about video, then I think it's going to be a great entry-level camera for people to get into Olympus. Oh yeah, today is chat only. I do the submissions. You can submit images, but I'm not going to be able to get to them until Thursday. So you know, for people that don't know, I do a live stream where I just do photo editing in Workspace or Lightroom, and you can submit your images for me to edit. And then I also usually put up a link to one of my images that you can edit. So I may put that up tonight or tomorrow morning, the link for that. Yeah, Levante, I agree. The PDAF, they should have left the PDAF in there. But it really only matters for video. I don't think PDAF makes that much of a difference in photography. The contrast of text systems are very good now. Also, I really hope that they got rid of the annoying screen inside the video mode on it, which was introduced. I'm not familiar with that because I don't have a Mark III. And the EM5 Mark III doesn't have that either. That's funny, Rod. You get high on mushrooms and watch Doctor Who for hours. PDAF is phase detect autofocus. So it uses a different way to acquire focus. So that it gets you, I forget technically how it works, but you don't get that pulsing with phase detect. It smoothly comes up to the scene like this, right? See how that's smooth? It doesn't pulse back and forth. Contrast detect pulses a little bit because it has to focus and refocus to find the contrast. Because like when I put my hands up here, there's no contrast, right, until it focuses. So contrast detect has to focus and refocus until it gets contrast. Whereas phase detect doesn't need to do that. Phase detect uses some other means of acquiring focus, but they say it's not quite as accurate. So a lot of cameras, they do that hybrid thing where they use the phase detect to get you close, and then the contrast detect to actually lock the focus. Oh, the OM system cameras are awesome. The OM2N is great. I have one right there actually. Or is that my OM1? my OM2. Yeah, these are great. I forget what the difference between the OM2 and the OM2N. Let me think. I think it had something to do with the flash, the hot shoe on it. But anyway, yeah, they're great cameras. I have a couple of vlogs where I go out and shoot with these. I shot with my OM2 or 2N on one vlog, and then I shot with my OM2S on another vlog. I wonder if this one's working. Why is it on the shelf? Oh yeah. OM2. Dang, why am I not using this? Is the meter's working? What the hell? I got a perfectly working good OM2 here. I don't know why I was using the other one. I have a couple of these. There might be something wrong with the meter on this one though, I think. Like it would meter sometimes, like it would meter correctly, but then the shutter would be off. It would stay open for like 2 seconds instead of 1/50th of a second. Like it was obvious there was a huge difference in shutter speed from one shot to the next. I think that's why I stopped using it. I hope I find when doing portraits with the EM10 Mark II, it really struggles to focus. Really? I don't find it a problem really at all. What lens are you? I mean, I know the 45mm is a great lens, but it is a little bit slow to focus. But let me see. It seems fine. You can hear it. It's pretty fast. Let me take the focus off. Wait, let me focus on something else. And this is just a kit lens, nothing special. Ooh, nice deal, Levante. 380 euros with the kit lens. Yeah, it's a great camera. John Softly says, steer clear of the OM4, it drains batteries. Yeah. With the OM4, I don't have an OM4, but what you need to do on the OM4, if you get one, or for some reason, is they have a, I think you put it at 1/60th of a shutter or put it in bulb mode, and that'll turn off the metering and a lot of the electronics in the camera. And people said that's helped with the battery drain on the OM4, is to put the camera shutter speed into one of the mechanical modes. I forget which one it is because I don't have that camera. But I think that people said that solved their problem, but I don't know. I'm not into the OM4. Rob, could you clarify AF system on the M5? I cannot clarify. I'm waiting for clarification myself. I'm pretty sure it's contrast only, but the fact that it's 121 point confuses me. So Peter and Robin, I'm sorry, Peter Forsgaard just did a video on it, so I would watch his video on that and see if it comes up. Let me pull up his video real quick. I'll put a link to it. E-M10 Mark IV Peter. Copy link. Yes, continuous autofocus on the M10 sucks. I agree. But there's a link to Peter's video on the M10. I haven't watched it myself yet because it came out while I was sleeping. And then I woke up and just started the stream. It was Australian Ron Grainer who composed the Doctor theme music. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Well, hopefully you guys can hear me. I can't get my camera back on though. Let me see. That's my laptop webcam. Let me see if I can get my regular cam. I got nothing. Ugh. Should be working though. There we go. Wow, that was weird. My computer just totally crashed for no reason. Let me get flipped around. There we go. Ah. Yeah, the computer crashed and then it rebooted and it said it had to repair the hard drive. I gotta get a new laptop. I mean, this thing is state of the art 2 years ago, but that's like a lifetime in computer world, right? Oh, so sorry guys. It's been a couple hours. Maybe I should end it anyway, but I didn't want to just end it because the computer crashed. What were we talking about before we were interrupted there? Yeah, so yeah, my computer crashed just like that. I'm glad I was able to get it back up and go with you guys because I'm having a good time talking to you guys. You guys are awesome. I you know, and I'm feeling good. The coffee's kicked in, and I know my eyes are still like bloodshot, but that's just the way it is. People have been telling me my whole life, you know, you look tired or you look like you're on drugs. What's wrong? You know, I had an intervention one day from my uncle, and he said he'd been talking to my other, you know, the rest of my family. He wanted to sit down with me and say, what drugs am I taking? And I'm like, I'm not on anything. I've never taken any drugs in my life, you know. Uh, but anyway, and you know, I'm so laid back, right? You wouldn't think I would be on. You'd think somebody on drugs would be kind of hyper and skinny, you know, and I'm not skinny or hyper. Oh, wow, a lot of you guys are coming back. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Get my mic down here. Oh, but anyway, yeah. Any other? We were talking about the M10 Mark IV, and I put a link to Peter's video, so we need to watch that later, right? Everybody go out and check Peter's video, and then Robin has a video on the 100 to 400. Let me pull that up. Robin Wong, 100 to 400. 7 hours ago. My goodness. These guys are so busy all the time. There's Robin's link. And then Joe Edelman has one as well. His was a little more high level. But if you like Joe Edelman's style, you should check his video out as well. He's really, like I said, he's really an invaluable asset in the photography community. Just like Robin and Peter and Jimmy. I mean, they're all great guys. Yeah, I need a companion, right? A female assistant. Any assistant, really. Doesn't have to be female. But a girl with a camera? Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, the 100 to 400. I'd like to try it and see. I mean, it's a lens I would consider. But I think at that price point, I think I'd rather get a 40 to 150 Pro lens. Yeah, it won't have the reach. But I guarantee it's going to be sharper. But I don't know. Maybe the 100 to 400 is just as sharp at 150 as the 40 to 150 is. It's hard to say. But both those lenses are so expensive. I would love to do a comparison side by side, right? Or at least a comparison with the 75 to 300, you know, which is, you know, it's about $400 all day long. You know, I got a giant lens hood on this, but this is a relatively compact lens, right? And zoomed out, it's not bad at all. This is, you can handle this on the smaller cameras because it's fairly lightweight. I think it's about the same weight as the 12 to 40 Pro lens. Let me see. Yeah, it's about the same size and weight, right? It's not a humongous difference between these two, but this one goes up to 300 millimeters. Um, but this is way sharper, right? The Pro lens is. So that's why I think the 40 to 150 Pro would be at $1,500. I would consider the 40 to 150 Pro over 100 to 400. Uh, Stanislav says, Rob, your ISO tests are technically precise. It's interesting to do ISO tests of the best smartphone cameras and compare. Oh, yeah, I have a Samsung Galaxy S9. I could compare it against that. I never even thought about comparing against the camera. And the S9 has the same thing as the S10, but this is already 2 years old now, right? So it's really not the latest. And this is a phone I'll probably have for about another 2 years before I'm almost obligated to upgrade, because the batteries aren't replaceable on these. So a lot of times, you know, after 4 years, the battery life is pretty lackluster. And then it's just bogs down and gets slow too, right? All the new apps and stuff are so crazy that you have to upgrade the hardware anyway. And David says you need the reach. Yeah. I mean, David, do you have a 75 to 300? I mean, if we go out tomorrow, I'll bring this with me so you can try it. You know, if you don't have it already, you're welcome to try it. Um, the 40 to 150R is a quarter of the way to the Pro version. Yeah, I know the 40 to 150 is awesome. But I'll bring this with me tomorrow so you can try it. Oh, hey, Beryl, you missed the start. I know. I'm going on 2 hours now, but there was a little interruption, right, where my stream went down for a few minutes because my computer crashed. This computer has never crashed before like that. Ever. This is the first time. I mean, this thing has been dead reliable. It's a Dell G7 from 2 years ago, but it has the 6 core with 32 gig and, you know, terabyte NVMe. The screen sucks on it, but I use a regular screen over here. Oh, you want me to bring my 17? Okay, I'll bring the 17 and the 300. Let's see, what's the weather like tomorrow? I thought I saw something about it being sunny. Why isn't thing coming up? So if I look at the hourly, so yeah, look at this, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. It's going to be nice and sunny in the morning, and then later on in the day, a little bit cloudy, then some storms in the evening, typical summer weather, and it's going to be nice and cool. Look at that, in the 70s. So I don't know, maybe we should be doing this offline, right, instead of in the middle of a chat, but let me give some thought, but let's try and meet up tomorrow in the morning somewhere. Something like that. No, this is not too heavy for an EM10. This is perfectly fine. Yeah, this is, for the reach that you get, this is excellent. I wouldn't worry about it at all. And like I said, I have this lens hood on here. But yeah, this is a great lens. Oh, John has the 100 to 400 from Panasonic. Yeah, I've seen amazing images from that. So if Olympus is as good as the Panasonic one, it better be at least as good, if not better than the Panasonic version. Then I would probably have no problem recommending it to anybody. Curious though. Let's look at the Panasonic 100 to 400, how much it is. So 1,300 bucks. This one has a collar, or maybe it comes with a collar. Here's a nice set, all kinds of filters and everything with it, and a memory card. And then let's see the Olympus. Oh, it's not listed yet, but people are saying that's 1,500, right? But it's weather sealed. Is the Panasonic weather sealed? It doesn't say. So yeah, that looks interesting though. Photos, where's my other link here? No. There it is. This is a site you guys should always reference though. I'm going to put a link to it for you. Hi Quinn, how are you? This site is really an excellent source of information for all the Micro Four Thirds lenses. Definitely check this particular site out. And what I'm going to do is let's look at Panasonic has a 100 to 300. Here's their 100 to 400. Oh, here's the Olympus 100 to 400. They have it on this site now. So it is, let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this. It says 21 elements, 15 groups. Close focusing 1.3 meters. Wow, so you need a little bit of distance. What's the close focusing on the Panasonic? The same. Let's look at the way they designed these. And this one is 985 grams. The Olympus version is 1120 grams, so it's, man, it's like 200 grams heavier, or 150 grams heavier than the Panasonic version. And it can be paired with the 2x teleconverter. So that's confirmed. And it has in-lens stabilization. Wow, okay, so that's why the price is so high. Is the stabilization built in? Does the Panasonic have stabilization? I don't know, John, tell me, does the Panasonic have stabilization in it too? It doesn't really say right here. Special design, pulls close. It doesn't look like the Panasonic has image stabilization if you look at this page. 72 millimeter filter size on the Panasonic, 72 on the Olympus. So it looks like a good lens. I mean, versus the, I keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry, guys. This is the one I wanted. Wow, so the 100 to 400 in Amazon UK is cheaper than the Panasonic. Oh, Power OIS. I'm not a Panasonic guy, so when it says Power OIS, it doesn't stand out to me. But yeah, thank you. It is image stabilized. It just didn't say so like when I was reading the text, but yeah, duh, right? Power OIS. The only two Panasonic lenses I own do not have Power OIS, so actually I own 3 Panasonic lenses. None of them have, well, what the heck? Let me see. This, I didn't know it, but this kit lens has image stabilization in it. I had no idea. I mean, it's so tiny. I have to kind of hold it out to here to read it, but I had a dream about this lens last night that the focusing ring got very smooth again. I dropped this lens, so now the zoom ring is very stiff. But when I was turning this, you get this flashback of dreams you had the night before. I was dreaming that this was very smooth again. I dream about cameras. Most people dream about like other stuff, but I dream about cameras. I think I heard the lens stabilization and body don't sync up. Maybe. Yeah, Robin would know. I'm sure in his video he talks about that. Yeah, the Sync IS doesn't work when you mix brands, Ollie and Panasonic. And Lysippus says, notice splash proof, not weather sealed. Peter's video was ambiguous, but it did have splash proof on the text. Oh, really? Let me look. It says here, lightweight, optical design, reliable dust proof and splash proof. Yeah. That's basically weather sealed. What's the 40 to 150 Pro say? Let's see. Where is it? Here it is. The 40 to 150 Pro, fast, accurate focusing, high quality, splash and dust proof. It says the same thing. It doesn't say weather sealed, but everybody knows it's weather sealed. So that just must be what they say for weather sealed stuff. Is oh, you guys can't see it. Hold on. Let me see if I can move this over. Yeah, you can see that a little better, right? Yeah, splash and dust proof on the 40 to 150 Pro. And then the 100 to 400 from Leica doesn't say splash and dust proof, although it might be, but it doesn't say. And yeah, reliable dust proof and splash proof right here. Right? Can you guys even see that? Okay. Rob, is the firmware for the M1 Mark III out yet? If not, do you know when? No, I have no idea. I haven't tried to update my cameras in a while. Where's my EM1 Mark III? Let me see what I'm on now. It says now that I'm on firmware 1.0. So if I plug this in, let me plug this in and see what happens. And update. Do storage. And I'm going to switch over to workspace. Let's just find out if there's update. I'm going to switch over to this screen so you guys can watch with me. So I'm going to go to camera, update. Yes. Next. Just ignore all this YouTube stuff over here. Version 1.1. Is that the version? I'm not going to do it while I'm streaming because I don't want to jack it up. Let's see what the details are. Version 1.1 came out on August 4th, 2020. And I'll zoom in. It says possible to use in-camera focus stacking with the Zuiko Digital 100. Oh, so all they did was add that lens to it. Nothing, so if you're not buying this lens, you don't really need to update your firmware. I mean, you probably should, but anyhow, wrong button again. Sorry, guys. But yeah, it's available. Let me unplug my camera. You have to be so careful when you're doing firmware updates on cameras, so I don't want to, because once you brick a camera, man, good luck. August 4th. That's today? Is today August 4th? Yeah, it is. Okay. So yeah, it's out. Let's see. Dang, I think that's the first Olympus question I've answered like in the whole show. Other than talking about lenses, but that's just chit chat. That's not like really helping anybody. That looks like an interesting lens. Oh, I didn't know, Levente, you can flash from the SD card on Olympus. I haven't seen anybody talk about that, but I haven't had a need to do it. Believe me, if I brick my camera, I will be scouring the forums for fixes. But it hasn't happened to me yet, so I wouldn't know offhand. Let me see if that pans out. So if we do Olympus E-M1 Mark III, which is the camera I'm going to update, bricked, unbrick. There's nothing here. Let's try update firmware via SD card. Oh, so there's a video here. Update the EM1, but that's the EM1. Firmware update without cable. How old is this? 2018? Look at this. Does anyone know if any hidden services? So nothing here. There will likely be a way to do it hidden services. Some OMDs have been able to update via firmware. Well, anyway, this is what I would do if I ever bricked my camera. I would be scouring the forums and stuff to find a way to unbrick it before I send it in. But I didn't see anything obvious, right, on a quick search that indicated I'd be able to do it on the newer cameras. It looks like maybe on some of the older ones. Yeah, I just don't. Let's see, Olympus. SD card. Yeah, on Olympus's website, they don't say anything about it. I was just doing a quick skim here. It says download your new camera. So if I click there, you can download the firmware to your camera through the internet. You need to download Olympus Workspace, which now includes the digital camera updater. So Olympus is not is not promoting it via SD card. Yeah, I know. I update my other cameras, like my Nikon, that way with the SD card. And the Canon also does it that way, but I've never seen a way to do it with Olympus. And Craig's asking, which image editing software do you like best for monochrome post-processing? You know, post-processing monochrome for me is no different than any other image I post-process. So I'm pretty content with any, like Lightroom or Olympus Workspace. They now Olympus Workspace has, I'm sorry, Lightroom has a lot more things you can do with black and whites that I never got into. Man, I just, off the top of my head, I can't remember because I rarely use those features. But there's something about doing high pass filtering and things like that where people can get really good black and whites, like amazing black and white images. So I would say if I got into monochrome processing, I would use Lightroom more than Workspace. But I do very simple things. I just mess with the tone curve and get the image to look, you know, to what is close. If I was doing prints and doing selling prints or images professionally in monochrome, I would look at Lightroom and all of the features that it has. Because I saw a tutorial once on it somewhere, like a couple of years ago, where there was a lot of amazing things you can do with black and white images in Lightroom beyond just playing with the tone curve. It had all these other kinds of masking and filters and gradations and just all kinds of things. The Panasonic 100 to 400 is dust and splash proof. Okay, good to know. Yeah, I think we saw that in, no, we didn't see that in the description, but I assumed it was. I mean, otherwise it'd be a 75, you know, it'd be like the 75 to 300, just a lot, like half the price, right? Other than to be quiet, what is silent shutter used for? Oh, that's a good question. Let me give that some thought. Silent shutter eliminates the risk of shutter shock, right? Where there might be some vibration in the camera for very, very fine work. So for example, like high-res shot mode would not be possible without silent shutter because it shifts one pixel at a time. And when the shutter opens and closes, you know, you can be off by a pixel easy just from the vibration from the shutter. So live ND, you know, there's a lot of things that silent shutter allows you to do. Live composite, live time, right? That silent shutter. Well, I guess live time, live composite is not silent shutter. That's just open shutter. But any kind of work that you need to do where you don't want any vibration at all in the image would make sense for silent shutter. So I would imagine like macro photography, it works well unless you need to use flash, things like that. But even you can use flash with silent shutter, I recall. But you have to be at like 1/15th of a second or something. I can't remember. Yeah, take a baby of a photo sleeping. Yeah. But I think aside from being just silent, I think there are some practical applications for reducing vibrations in the camera from the mechanical movement of the shutter mechanism. Oh, and yeah, that's a good point. Silent shutter goes up to 1/32,000th of a second on some cameras, right? 1/16,000th of a second on the EM10. I think 1/32,000th of a second on the EM1. So you can get much faster shutter speeds as well. You'll get rolling shutter, so don't pan with silent shutter. But if you're standing still or the subject is standing still, you can get a really fast shutter speed. Novente says, I can't send the link to the form in here, but I'll email it to you if you want. Yeah, just email it to me. It's rob@robtrek.com. Never know when you'll need it. Or better yet, post it in my forum. But make sure you put a disclaimer, you know, I'm not responsible for anything you do to your camera if you do it, if it's not an approved method, right? And Roberto says, yep, I see vibrations during macro. Yes. I have no idea, Stanislav. I I don't know. And by fabric firmware, I mean default, right? Or you mean like custom firmware, right? Some people, they write, I've seen in one of the forums where somebody's making their own firmware for the Olympus cameras. I might be willing to try it on my EM10 just to see. But I'm not doing that on one of my EM1s. God, no. Yeah, there's a surface mode in the cameras. You know, it's some sequence of buttons, right? You press and hold something while you turn it on, then you up, down, left, right, like in a video game to get those secret moves, right? But it's not something I do very often. Okay, I think I'll wrap it up here, even though there's still a good number of people here. I appreciate that. I'm getting hungry. I didn't have breakfast yet. Any other questions or anything you guys want to talk about? Otherwise, I'll be back on Thursday. And Stanislav, I was the developer for Nikon Coolpix. Oh, that's cool. So, man, you have a lot of insight into software and things like that. Yeah, Olympus definitely has a service menu. I've gotten into it where it shows you the shutter count and some other things in there that I didn't know what they were for, but I don't know if it allows you to do, you know, I haven't found anyone that's published anything with great detail on that. I did find one site where a guy did talk about the different things in the service menu, but it was for an older Olympus camera. I think it was the EM1 Mark 1. He did a full layout of all the service menus in the EM1 Mark 1. And I can't imagine they'd be too dissimilar from all the modern cameras as well. If I find that, I'll post a link to it in my forum or talk about it in my next stream, but I don't know where that is now. So you're responsible for the GPS integration. That's really cool. So you have some insight into the, like I said, into the design of cameras, right? Oh. Yeah, you should join my forum and participate in there. I'm sure a lot of people would love to, like, you know, chat with you there. I know I would, because man, you would have some insight that no one else does. It's very rare to meet somebody that actually had anything to do with the actual design and development of the camera, right? At that level. Most people are just like me, right? They just use the camera and find things that other people have done. But I didn't do anything myself, so you're hearing it third hand. Bill Photo says, I'm from Australia. I can't connect a servo when I try to update the firmware. Yeah, that's come up where some people couldn't connect via firmware to update their firmware. So I don't know if I talked to you before about this, but somebody had brought this up. So I said, try a few different things, like make sure all of your adware, ad blocking software, virus software is turned off. Maybe try using a virtual private network. Like try to find an IP address that you can access, because for some reason some people, their IP address is blocked by Olympus or vice versa. Olympus's IP address is being blocked to Australia, so you might be able to use a VPN to get around that. Okay, thanks, Levente. I'll look forward to that. But yeah, so make sure all your firewalls are off. So once you've kind of eliminated everything that's on your computer, the last thing to try is a virtual private network. And there's a lot of free ones online where you can connect. I've done it before to get connected to, because I tried to get 43 Rumors for some reason was blocking my IP address. So I was able to access the site through a virtual private network online. But that's something you have to try. The other thing is maybe go to uh, a free Wi-Fi hotspot like McDonald's or something and see if you can connect that way. Or a library, a public library that might have free Wi-Fi access, although they do a lot of blocking too. But I think the problem is somewhere along the line, the internet IP address is being blocked somewhere. So you need to try to figure out a way to get around that. Yeah, the Opera web browser has a built-in VPN, but since you have to connect through Olympus Workspace, you can't like use a browser, right? You have to use Olympus Workspace to update, and that has to be able to go through a VPN. So you'll need like a third-party software, I think. And then changing the DNS server, that's true, but then you have to get into the router, right? I think you have to go into your router. You have to get really technical. Sign into your router, and if your router lets you change the DNS server, then that may be an option as well. I know the router that I was supplied by Verizon doesn't let me change the DNS server directly in the router. You might be able to change it in Windows. I mean, once I got everything working, I don't think about it anymore because it's been a while since I've had to play with that stuff. But I'm thinking there might be, yeah, I think Levente's on the right track here about maybe changing the DNS server. I think you can do it inside of your operating system, whether it's Mac or Windows. But you can also do it in the router. And I had to do something once before I got onto Verizon, and I got it working. Oh, see, Levente, he's saying you can change it in Windows 2 adapter properties. Some routers don't allow changing the DNS server, so ISPs can log your data and sell it. Yeah. Yeah, try it in Windows. There's a lot of if you're not familiar with computers and technical things, uh you're gonna have to watch, you're gonna have to do your due diligence and learn how to do it. Like I did, there's plenty of videos, like search for how to change your DNS server in Windows or Mac. And then do a little research on the DNS server you're changing to, because I understand there's some security issues there. Like you don't want to change it to a DNS server to a, a, a group of hackers and thieves and people that will do bad things if you go through their DNS servers. Because sometimes they'll redirect you to different sites that will load crap onto your computer. So it's not as simple as just changing your DNS servers. You have to pick one, right? The sequence of numbers like 192.168.1.0, whatever it is. You change the DNS server to a specific sequence of numbers, but make sure that that sequence of number points to a legitimate DNS server that's not going to try and hack or spy on you. So like I said, there's a lot. If you're not a technical person, this is all new terminology for you, right? So be really careful with that. Try, if you can, work with reputable VPN companies. And Google, I think Google has their own DNS server. So you can use Google's DNS servers. It's all coming back to me now, right? You can look up what DNS servers Google has, things like that. But make sure whatever DNS server you use is a reputable DNS server like Google, and so on. Levente knows. See, Levente knows everything, right? OpenDNS from Google DNS, Cloudflare DNS, these are all safe bets. Thank you. Like I said, it's been years since I've had to think about that stuff, but That's, yeah, those are 3 good DNSs you can try first before you try a VPN. And then if that doesn't work, your next step would be VPN, I think, aside from all the other antivirus stuff I told you to turn off. And Stanislav says the 40 to 152.8 is not enough for bird photography. I tried. The 75 to 300 works better. The distance to a bird matters. Yes. Yeah, a lot of people use the 40 to 150 with the teleconverter, right? So they're getting, with a 2x teleconverter, so they're getting that 300 focal length at f5.6, which is still faster than the, what is this at 300? This one is f6.7. So this is, it's only about a half a stop or a third of a stop slower. But I guarantee the Pro lens will be a lot sharper than this one when it's out there at 300. So okay, I'm gonna call it the 4150 f4 is slow to focus. Not really. I think it's fine. You know, the f4 aperture in lower light can cause an issue, but generally speaking, as far as f4 lenses go, it's not slow at all, in my opinion. But all right, thanks to everybody for joining me today. I really have to go. I'm starving to death here. I gotta eat some eggs and toast or something. So we'll see you guys on Thursday if you want to come back then, or maybe next week at this time slot if it works for you. As always, I appreciate your time, and it was a lot of fun. We'll see you guys next week.